start it from. And we can probably get started in like a few minutes. We'll just wait for a bit because there's probably a few people still popping in.
That sounds good. I'll warn you before we start, I have 2 cats, and sometimes when I'm on Zoom, they think that they also want to be on Zoom. So if you hear them or if you see them, sorry.
It's all good. I love cats. I have 2 cats too, so I get it. It's
I
the
think
2
they just know when you don't want to be interrupted. That's when they choose the right opportunity to either like come up and come all over you or fight in a corner and make a lot of noise.
I'll be writing an exam and all day my cat doesn't want to hang out with me, but when I write my exams, he's like scratching at my door, trying to get into my room, and I'm like, what's happening?
Yep, they know.
They really do. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. And then
Sure.
there might be a few more people who trickle in, but we have the recording if anyone misses it, I guess.
Yeah, perfect. So I will share my screen and I'll introduce myself. My name's Caitlin Biddulph. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions at Pacific, and I only work with the College of Optometry. So the Doctor of Optometry programs are a big one that we have. But I also work with applicants who are applying to the master's and the PhD in vision science programs that we have here. So really happy to speak with you guys. I try to keep this, fairly informal. So if anyone does have questions as we're going, I will monitor the chat. Feel free to type something in there or raise your hands and unmute yourself. And you can ask as you go. Sometimes that's a little bit easier than trying to remember everything for the end. But today I'm going to be talking about Pacific's program, and I'll also do a little bit of a deeper dive into our admissions process and give you some tips and tricks if you're interested in applying. And then, as I said, there should be time at the end for questions, but if you have them going through, just ask. Again, chat, unmute yourself, whatever you feel comfortable with. So I will start by sort of introducing you to where we are. So we are in Forest Grove, Oregon, which is about, I live in Portland, it takes me about 35 minutes to get to Forest Grove. So about 40 minutes outside of Portland, which is the big city here in Oregon. Forest Grove is a pretty small town. So we have about 30,000 people that live in Forest Grove. And that's where the College of Optometry is located. It is outside of the campus. It is pretty residential. So there are housing opportunities on campus for students. We do have apartment style dorms if you would like to live on campus. I would say most of our students do live in off-campus shared apartments or houses just because of the cost. It's usually a lot cheaper to live right off campus than to live on campus. But mostly students do live in Forest Grove rather than in Portland, for example, just because you are on campus quite often. So I think Forest Grove's great. It's about a 45-minute drive to the coast. As I said, we're about 35 minutes to Portland if you want the big city. From there, it's another about hour to Mount Hood if you want year-round snow opportunity and skiing and snowboarding and all of that sort of stuff. Oregon is definitely known for our outdoor activities. So hiking, biking, running, rafting, you name it. And we're also sort of known as a foodie place. So if you have never visited Oregon, hopefully you will have the opportunity to do so. But I think it's nice to start out with just a little introduction to where we are and where you would be spending 3 years. So the sort of number one question I always get during most of these presentations is, what is different about Pacific than other programs? Because as you know, there are many really great optometry programs in the US and in Canada. So I think I like to highlight some of the less tangible aspects of our program that I think make it really special. And the number one thing you will hear from me and from faculty and from students is our environment. We are very student-centered. Everything that we do, we want to receive student input. So there are students on all of our committees within the College of Optometry. So we have students on the admissions committee who read your applications and who also interview applicants. Those students have an equal vote to all of the faculty members on the committee as well. It's really important for us that all of the students have equal votes to the faculty. And it's the same for every other committee. So we have students on the curriculum committee, we have a dean's council, we have an academic program and standards committee. We now, for the last 2 years, have had a COVID task force. There's a research committee. So we really want to receive that student input, because at the end of the day, you know, it's your program. You're the ones who are here for 4 years. And then after you graduate, you're representing Pacific, you know, when you go out into the world and when you practice. So we want to have your input to make sure that, you know, we are giving you the best experience that we can. And nothing that we do is based on like GPA or class rank. So our whole sort of fiber of our methods for selections of labs and selections of clinics and externships is just to be as fair as we possibly can. So most of it's done on a lottery system. I will go over that a little bit later, but we think it's really important that we foster an environment where students really collaborate with each other rather than compete. We found that that generally leads to students being successful, and it's just a really positive learning environment. So that's what we think is sort of really special about the way that we operate. And I mentioned that we have students on the curriculum committee. We have been around for a very long time. This is our 76th year as a College of Optometry. So it's given us many years to sort of fine tune our curriculum. Part of that is, you know, with that student input. So I'll show you our curriculum in a couple of slides. I won't go into a deep dive with all of the courses, but I just want to show you how it's laid out. But a couple of years ago, we had a course that you took first semester of your first year, but it was material that you needed to know on boards, which part one of boards, which you take in your about third week of March in your third year. So you had to go back and review about, you know, 2.5 years prior to review that material. And students didn't love that. So per their suggestion, we split up that 3 credit class into 3 1-credit classes that you take 1 per year. And so you're building on each other, and then you don't have to go all the way back and study. So, you know, fine tuning like that, adding electives, you know, making sure that our curriculum is up to date. We're really trying to constantly sort of evolve, even though we are a really established College of Optometry. And then this kind of goes hand in hand with our environment, but we really do put a huge emphasis on student success. And I think that means more than just the traditional, like we do have really high national board pass rates, and we are very proud of our students for that. But beyond that, we want students to be successful on sort of an everyday level. And a big part of that is making sure that they feel supported throughout their journey, so that if they need extra help or, tutoring, or if they want to be more involved, we're able to give them those opportunities. So you'll receive, if you apply and you choose to come to Pacific, all of our students receive a big sibling who's an upperclassman in the College of Optometry. We usually match you by undergraduate institution. So you'll be matched if we can't do by undergraduate institution, usually then like area that you're coming from. So you'll definitely be matched with a Canadian student. But we think it's really important to have that peer mentor. It really helps your transition to optometry school, and then they're there for you, for your time in your first year when you're getting settled in. And then when you're an upperclassman, if you would like to, you can volunteer to be a big sibling to one of the incoming first year students. And that's one of the pieces of feedback we get from students a lot, is how much they appreciate that, just because sometimes you don't want to go to, a faculty member right away to ask for like a tip about studying. Maybe you want to go to a student instead. Maybe you feel more comfortable, or something about, moving to the area, or, how to get around Forest Grove. And the students can really help you with that. We also assign you a faculty mentor before you arrive. So you'll meet them at orientation, and they'll be your official mentor throughout your time as well. Additionally, in the College of Optometry, so all of our faculty, staff, administration, anyone affiliated with the College of Optometry has an office in the College of Optometry building, and we have an open door policy. So help is always there. One of those people is our student support specialist, Sarah. She's a confidential advocate, so we feel really lucky to have her in that building as well. So we measure student success on a lot of different metrics, but most of all, I think we just want to make sure our students are comfortable at Pacific and making sure they're, getting the resources they need, and then they can, finish the program in 4 years and pass boards and go on to be successful alumni and really enjoy their experience. So that's our goal. All right. Outside of your regular curriculum, we know that especially first year students want to be pretty involved as soon as they get to campus, because you're really excited to start optometry school. You're meeting all of these new people, you've moved to a new place. So if it's something that you're interested in, there are a ton of leadership and club opportunities for you to be involved in, pretty much from day one when you start at school. So as I mentioned, we do have all of those committees that have students on them. So if you want to take a leadership position, you are welcome to apply for one of those committees. We have a bunch of different clubs. So all of the big sort of established organizations like NOSA and AOSA and AOA, we have chapters of on campus. We also have clubs for all of the different specialties. So we have a contact lens club, we have a sports vision club, we have a vision therapy club. The list goes on. We also have a Canadian student organization called CHAOS. So if you want to join that, again, you are welcome to. So with all of those different clubs, there are leadership positions if you would like to take one. Otherwise, we definitely encourage people to get involved. It's a good way to meet your fellow classmates who have similar interests to you. and also to meet, upperclassmen from pretty much day one. Other than things in the College of Optometry, we have had a bunch of students, participate in intramural sports. We have people who participate in like the choir or the band. So we definitely encourage our students, if they want to pursue these other opportunities outside of the curriculum, because it's really important to us that you have that balance between, your study time and your more fun time. Another option that we have, and this is not for everyone, so I usually don't spend a ton of time on it. We do have a couple of master's degrees, which you can do concurrently to your Doctor of Optometry degree. So you don't need to decide on any of these now. Most students apply in their second semester of their first year, and then they start the program in their first semester of their second year. You'll take additional classes on top of your OD classes. Usually it's 1 to 2 classes per semester that you'll take extra, but you can receive a master's degree at the same time. So usually you'll finish that master's degree before you go off onto your 4th year externships. So we have 3 options. One is a Master of Science in Vision Science. So that's really in-depth research on the visual system. You can choose a topic that you're really interested in. You'll work with a faculty member to do your own thesis and your own research. The next one is a Master's of Education in Vision Function and Learning. So that one is mostly for students who are interested in pediatrics, and it's a really in-depth study of how the vision and learning go hand in hand in kids. And the last one is a Master's of Business Administration or an MBA degree. So that's if you want really in-depth business knowledge, you can do that concurrently as well. We do have practice management courses that you are required to take as part of the standard Doctor of Optometry curriculum, but some students just want that extra business information. So those are options. If anyone wants more information, I'm happy to send you more information about those. But as I said, you don't need to decide now or anytime soon. I just like to bring them up in the presentation because I do think they're a really good opportunity for those of you who might be interested. And last, in the US, every different state has a different scope of practice for optometrists. So what that means is an optometrist in Oregon versus an optometrist in California, which is the state just to the south of us, can do different things legally because of the state laws. So we are very lucky in Oregon that we have a very broad scope. So what that means is optometrists can do quite a lot here, which is great for you as a student, because it means as a student and in lab and in clinic and with patients, you can also do a lot on real eyes and real people. So optometrists in Oregon, you can prescribe oral medication, you can do lesion removals as long as they don't require a suture. You can do injections. The only thing we're really limited from doing in Oregon is laser surgical procedures. So we cannot use lasers yet. We're hoping that changes within the next couple of years, but we do have a course on lasers because we think it's important that you know about them and know how they're used in optometry. But as a student, having a broad scope of practice in the state that you're going to school in just means that you're able to practice more skills on, real eyes and real patients, when you're here. All right. So as I said, I'm going to go over the curriculum. I'm not going to go over all the classes. If you want me to send you a link to the full curriculum, It's all clickable. I can do that. I really like to show these next two slides to just lay out what you can expect in your 4 years. So in your first year, so we're on a semester system, fall and spring semesters. In your first year, it's definitely the most lecture and lab heavy time. So in your first semester, you take around 21 credits, which is probably more than most of you are used to taking. Don't panic. It's the biggest feedback I hear from first year students is it's not that the coursework is necessarily much more difficult than in undergrad. It's just that there's more of it. So you have to have, good time management. Instead of taking maybe 4 or 5 final exams in a semester, in your first semester, you'll have 8 final exams. So it's higher volume. I wouldn't say it's necessarily that much more difficult. And it's all optometry related. So hopefully it's all stuff that's really interesting to you. But your first year is, mostly lectures and labs. Fall semester goes from the end of August to about the second week of December. Then you have about a month off. You come back for the spring semester in around the second or third week of January. And that goes until the beginning of May. So then in that first summer between your first and second year, so beginning of May to end of August, you have that whole summer off. So do whatever you would like to do. A lot of people will go home or work, or a lot of students do kind of stick around the campus area and travel around Oregon or travel around the US. We don't care what you do at all. Enjoy that summer because it's your last full summer that you get. So in second year is when you're doing lecture and lab, but you're also getting much more patient care focused and clinic focused. So most of your labs will be around clinical procedures and patient care. You will be going into clinic a bit in your second year. It's the same format as first year in that there's a fall and a spring semester. So again, end of August to mid-December, mid-January to beginning of May. In April of your spring semester of your second year, you will do CSPs, which is clinical skills proficiency exams. Essentially, it is you going through an entire eye exam with a faculty member observing you to make sure that you are ready to see patients on your own. Because in third year, that's when you start seeing patients on your own. So you'll have those clinical checkouts in April of that spring. Classes will finish around the first week of May. And then your third year is 3 semesters. So you are on campus that summer. You don't get that full summer break. You have about 2 weeks in between your second and third year. And then after your summer semester, you have about 2 weeks before your fall semester begins. But in third year, as I said, is when you'll be seeing patients on your own. You're assigned 8 hours of patient time in clinic per week. So 4 of those hours per week will be in primary care, and 4 of those will be in a specialty rotation. So we do 3 specialty rotations. One of them will be pediatrics, one of them will be ocular disease, and then one of them will be contact lenses. So you'll rotate through those different specialties in the 3 different semesters, and then you always have a 4-hour primary care clinic as well. So 8 hours per week for those 3 semesters. Because of that, you have less labs because you're seeing patients. You are still, taking your lecture courses. In your third year is also when electives come into play. So you can take 1 elective per semester. we have a ton of really popular electives. So again, if you're interested in the curriculum, I can pop a link into the chat. But some of the most popular ones, we have a Spanish for optometry elective. So depending on your patient population that you want to serve after you graduate, it's really popular for some students. We have a research elective if you want to do research for credit. We have an art elective. There's a nutrition elective. There's an interdisciplinary elective with some of the other students and other health professions. So a ton to choose from. So third year, again, is when you'll be in clinic at least 8 hours a week. So you'll have 8 hours a week of patient contact time. They're usually there a little bit longer to do charting and stuff like that. And 3 semesters, summer, fall, and spring. And then you don't get that summer off after 3 years because your 4th begins about 2 weeks after spring semester finishes. Your 4th year is all rotations. So it's 4 12-week externships. We have externships. We have about 130 different sites all over the US. We have about 25 sites in Canada. And then we have 2 international locations in Germany and Japan. So you'll be traveling around in your 4th year to whichever externships you choose. As I said before, we don't do anything based on class rank or GPA. So it's a kind of a lottery system to see which clinics you go to. I say it's sort of a lottery system because most of our students get their first choices, or if they don't get all first choices, it's first and second choices. We have a very large Google document where students put in their preferences. You know, it's like, this person really wants this one. I don't really care, so I'm going to choose a different one. And if, let's say, you want to go to Hawaii in your first rotation, and there's 3 spots, but there's 4 people that put their name down. Those 4 names will go into a hat. The first 3 names that get picked out, those people get to go, and that 4th person will then put their name on their second choice. So we do that for all of the rotations. So again, 4 12-week rotations, and I have the list as well if you want to check out sites where we have in the US and in Canada as well. The only thing we say about the rotations is if one of the places we partner with is a place that you're familiar with, so maybe you've worked there before or you did, extensive shadowing there, we kind of say maybe it's not the best idea to choose that place because you already have experience there. Rather try somewhere else. Also, that person or that location might, in their mind, see you as the person who they knew 4 years ago when you were shadowing, but now you're a 4th year optometry student and you're seeing patients on your own and have a lot more knowledge and a lot more skills than you did 4 years ago, but they might not see you that way. So widen your net if you can. All right, so I talked about the different externships that we offer in the 4th year. And I'll go back and just highlight in your 3rd year is when you're doing those 3 semesters with 8 hours of patient contact time per week. In your 3rd year, you'll be doing those clinic rotations at Pacific University clinics. So every school is a little bit different in how they do their clinical education. So some schools have one really large clinic in their College of Optometry building, and that's where you would see all of your patients. Pacific does it a little bit differently. We have 6 different clinics. So one of them is in our College of Optometry building, in Forest Grove, but the other 5 are not in Forest Grove. They're in the surrounding areas. So the most western location we have is Forest Grove. The most eastern location we have is Portland, downtown Portland. Those 2 are our 2 largest clinics, our sort of flagship clinics that have all of the specialties in them. And then we have 3 clinics that are in between there, Hillsborough, Cornelius, and Beaverton. And then our 6th clinic is this picture on the left. That's our mobile IVAN. So that is a converted RV. We have 2 full lanes in there, plus a waiting area. We can pull a lane into a parking lot or a driveway if we need to. We use that a lot for community outreach, which I'll go into next, but we do use it as a fully functional clinic. So in your time as a 3rd year, you will be rotating through different clinics. We really like our model because each of our clinics has a little bit of a different feel to it, and also a different patient population that comes through. Different faculty also are attendings at the different clinics. So you'll get to work with a variety of faculty members. You'll see how different clinics are set up and operate. So I think it gives you a really nice, varied experience even before you go off to your 4th year externships. It does mean you need to travel away from campus. So let's say maybe in your first semester, you will have, your primary care rotation in Forest Grove. So that's easy. It's in the 1st floor of our College of Optometry, but maybe your pediatrics specialty rotation is in Beaverton. So you'll have to travel there. Students, I get this question a lot if people have cars. I would say it's about 50-50. Some students that have cars will then just drive and everyone will carpool with them. There is also good public transportation to all of our different clinics. And we have a light rail, which is called the Max Line, that actually stops directly outside our Hillsborough and Beaverton clinics and is just about a block and a half away from our Portland clinic. So it's a little bit of a mix in how people travel, but our opinion is that the varied experience sort of makes up for traveling, but obviously that is up to you. So you would be rotating through the different clinics in your 3rd year. You don't get to choose where you go for your primary care hours. So those will just be randomly assigned to you, but you do get to choose which clinics you go to for your specialty care. So you might say, okay, I want to do, contact lens in Forest Grove. I want to do pediatrics in Beaverton, and I want to do ocular disease in Portland. And then the primary care ones will just be randomly assigned. So I talked about our IVAN, which is the picture on the left. The picture on the right is inside of our Beaverton clinic. So that one is our newest clinic. That's the one that looks most like a private practice, I would say. And that one is also home to our 3D clinic. And I'll mention community outreach while I'm on this slide because the IVAN is here. Community outreach is also built into our curriculum. So you are required to do at least 3 outreach events per year. Most of our students do significantly more than that, but you have to do at least 3. So you can start outreach from day 1 as a 1st year student. You don't need to wait. Obviously, the more advanced you get in your education, the more you'll be able to do at outreach. So as a 1st year student in your 1st week, you might not know how to do a lot, but you can observe, you can do pre-testing, you can do whatever you're capable of. And then as you learn more throughout their years, you'll be able to do more. But we do outreach using the IVAN. We go, and not all of our events are with the IVAN. Some of them are not, but we do outreach to, schools, community centers, places all within the Portland metro area, within 45 minutes-ish of campus. We have a couple of really big outreach events per year where we go to the vineyards. So Oregon is a large wine producing region, and the vineyards are only about 25 to 30 minutes south of campus. So we'll go out to the vineyards with our iVan and a ton of students and faculty members, and we provide eye exams for all of the migrant workers who are there, who are harvesting the grapes. And we have capabilities to cut glasses on the iVan, do full exams. And then if we need to refer someone back to our clinics for any specialty care, we can do that as well. So outreach is really important to us. Our philosophy is, we have the faculty members, we have the students, we have the equipment. Let's try to make sure that everyone has access to eye care, the most people as possible. All right, pictures here. The picture on the left is our Forest Grove clinic. So that's what one of the exam lanes looks like. They mostly all look like that. So that's the one that's on the first floor of our College of Optometry. On your right, you have a picture outside of our Hillsborough clinic. And you can see on the left hand of that picture there, the little train, that is the MAX, which I referred to earlier. So that's our light rail line that goes from Hillsborough. It goes all the way to downtown Portland. It goes to the airport. So it's a really easy way to commute. And I talked about our lottery system. I will put a link in the chat if you'd like it for the list of our fourth year externships. So in your fourth year, you do have the option to do one of your 4 rotations in Forest Grove in our own eye clinic if you would like to. So that's an internal rotation. But then the other 3 will have to be external. So 3 or 4 will be outside of campus. All right. Switching gears a little bit, I want to go into some admissions information. And I get these questions a lot, so I thought I'll just make a slide about it. But I do like to preface this slide with the caveat that at Pacific, we do evaluate applications holistically, and these are averages. So we do have students whose GPAs and OAT scores and GRE scores are well above this, and also that are below this. So I'll go deeper into what these GPAs mean. So we look at 3 different GPAs, and OptumCAS will calculate these for you. We look at your science, BCP, which is biology, chemistry, physics, GPA. So last year, the incoming student class, that average was a 3.42. We look at your cumulative GPA, so all of the credits you've taken, that average was a 3.54. And we look at the last 45 semester credits. So depending on how many credits you take per term, about the last year and a half of school. And we look at that because we definitely acknowledge that it's not always an easy transition to start university. And also, we think your more recent coursework is just a bit more indicative of how you'll do in optometry school rather than classes you might have taken 3 or 4 years ago. I'll also give the caveat with this that I know, especially in Canada, I'm not sure about UVA, that you have had most of your classes move online. I know at a bunch of schools, especially in Canada, that like winter 2020 term, you don't have any grades for. That's fine. We take pass, no pass. COVID has, affected everyone. So we're certainly not going to penalize you for that. So if you're worried about having classes that don't have grades in the last 2 years because of COVID, don't worry. We will accept your past credits. If you have the opportunity now to take classes for a grade, we would strongly prefer a grade. But we do know in the beginning, especially in Canada, a bunch of institutions moved just to a pass, no pass. And then OAT and GRE. So we accept either. Last year, our academic average on the OAT average was a 330, and the total science portion was a 320. And the GRE, the verbal portion, was a 153, and the quant portion was a 154. So those are averages. If you do have any questions about sort of your academic profile, or if you want me to review any prerequisite coursework, please feel free to email me. We can go over things by email, or we can set up a time to have an individual phone or Zoom appointment as well. So it's better to ask early than to worry about it. So I'll finish just with a little bit of a closer look at how we do admissions. So as I said earlier, we do a holistic evaluation. So we don't have like GPA or OAT minimum cutoffs. We look at your academic portion, which was the stuff on the previous slide. And then we also are, thoroughly reading your essays, letters of recommendation, looking at any optometric experience you have, any extracurricular experience that you have. So, we are really looking at your whole application. Another little COVID caveat I'll put in there is we are very aware that in the last 2 years, most or a lot of sort of volunteer or extracurricular activities have either not been available, or not as many things have been available because you can't do much in person. So we don't have any minimums for like volunteer hours, shadowing hours. The fact that you are all here listening to me shows that you're pretty committed to optometry. So I'm not worried about that. But we do understand that the pandemic has really limited access to be able to do a lot of things. We do rolling admissions. So our application opens on July 1st every year and closes on February 15th. We will evaluate your application as soon as it's complete. And we usually let you know within 2 weeks if you have received an interview. After your interview, we let you know within 2 weeks what your admissions decision is. So it can go pretty quick. And interview days. So pre-pandemic, everything was on campus for interviews. Last year, everything was online. This year, it's a mix of on campus and online. So we give you the choice if you want to come and visit us, or if you want to interview online. We don't have a preference at all. Especially, we know it's getting a little better now, I think, for Canada traveling, but in the beginning of the year, borders weren't open. We're, again, certainly not going to penalize you for not wanting to travel internationally right now. So your choice. Our interviews, we do generally every other Friday. An interview day consists of your interview and a student Q&A panel, and a couple of presentations from myself and the dean. If you're on campus, we also have a tour, and you'll have lunch with faculty and students. And the actual interview, we do what we call a closed file interview process. So you will be interviewing with 2 members of the College of Optometry. It's one faculty member and 1 student and you. So it'll be 3 people in the room or in the Zoom room at the same time together for an hour. But they don't know anything about you other than your first and last name. And if you come on campus to interview with us, they'll also know the city where you are from, because it's on your name tag. But other than that, they haven't read your online application. They haven't seen any of your, OAT scores. So we really keep that process separate because we want to get to know you during the interview and not have anything that you talked about or that was in your application affects the interview process. So we'll have separate people who will read your online application, other people who will interview you. And then after the interview days, we come together as an admissions committee to make those decisions. All right, so some final tips. Because we evaluate applications holistically, definitely complete the experiences section thoroughly if you can. So this is a section, if you haven't looked at OptumCAS yet, it's a section for employment, extracurriculars, optometric experience, shadowing, all of that sort of stuff. And please put that you're a member of the pre-optometry club, because I often recognize names of people who I've met during presentations and they're not on there. And I think, well, you should put that on there and show that you're, again, committed to optometry. So definitely add that. This section is a little bit tedious to fill out. So if you need to take an extra couple of days to fill it out thoroughly, please do so, because as I said, we do evaluate applications holistically. So we'd really just like to see what else you've been up to. And we want to, throughout your application, see your understanding and motivation for the profession. So part of the reason why I mentioned, definitely put that you're part of the pre-optometry club. Optometry school is a big commitment of your time, of your money, and you're really investing in your future career. So we do want to make sure it is something that you've put a little bit of thought into. Again, you are all here with me or listening on a recording. I have no doubts that you are motivated towards optometry. So just make sure that's coming across within your application. Prerequisites. I get this question a lot, especially from U of A and other schools in Canada, because I do know that some of your classes don't have labs. Anatomy and physiology, I believe, is one of them. It's generally fine. We're not going to penalize you for something that is not your fault. But if you do have any questions about any of the classes you've taken and if they'll count for our prereqs, just let me know. All you need to do is send me an email with the course number and say, I took it at U of A or I took it at some other institution, and I will quickly check it and get back to you. And then your mind is at ease. And then prepare for the interview. So as I said, we are not trying to trick you at all during the interview process. We really just want to get to know you. And we do understand that nerves play a part in every interview because it is, it's a big deal. But if you do get really nervous, I recommend you do practice with a friend, or, if your career center offers any mock interview practice, just get used to talking about yourself in front of someone who you don't really know. And that will really help you for the interview, I think. All right. So for us to evaluate an application, it needs to be complete, which means it needs to be verified through OptumCAS, which is the centralized application system. We do not have a supplemental application. So as long as you submit everything to OptumCAS, you're done. You don't need to submit anything else to us. And it does have to have the 2 required letters of recommendation, one from an instructor and one from an optometrist. If you have more, great. We will read however many you submit, and we will take those into consideration. If you only have those 2 and they meet the requirements, great. That's absolutely fine as well. So completely up to you how many you would like to submit. And then we do need either OAT or GRE scores. We do also take the MCAT or the DAT if you've taken those exams instead. The biggest advice I can give you, especially for the OAT, is to time your test wisely. So the number one feedback I always hear from our first year students, because I ask them, for feedback so that I can help the next generation of applicants, it's always that they felt like they really knew the material on the exam, but the time crunch just got to them. So they didn't feel like they had enough time to answer all the questions. So if you can get your hands on a practice OAT exam and take it and time it like you would be timed in the actual exam, just to get used to how much time you're given for each section, I think that would be really beneficial for you. All right, and some final tips. Submit your application when it's a final product. So once you hit submit on OptumCast, you generally can't edit most sections. You can add letters of recommendation. Your OATs can come later, that's fine. And it's also completely fine and very normal to not have all of the prerequisites complete at the time that you apply. That's absolutely fine. We can give you an admissions decision without them being complete, as long as you are on track to have them complete by the time the program starts. So because your application's locked, mostly when you hit submit, review all of your essays, just make sure there's no glaring spelling or grammatical errors. Request your transcripts and letters of recommendation early, just so you're not stressed about waiting for those things to come in. Give your references some time to be able to write a really nice letter for you as well. And then contact me if you have any questions. I'm the admissions person for Pacific. It's only me. Please let me know how I can help you. My goal is to make your application process as stress-free as possible. And finally, the dates are the same every year. For this year, this application cycle, we open on July 1st. We close in less than 2 weeks on the 15th. We do accept OAT retakes on or before March 15th. Don't procrastinate. And I bring this up every time, and a lot of times people laugh. OptumCast is on Eastern Standard Time. So for you, the deadline is midnight on the 15th, which is really 10 p.m. So if you try to submit it at 11, it won't go through. So just keep that in mind if you are kind of coming down to the wire when you're submitting applications. And that's true for every school. OptumCast is always on Eastern Standard Time. So the deadline is always midnight Eastern on whatever date all the other schools have as well. All right, so this is my email address, caitlinb@pacificu.edu. And those next two are just some Instagram pages. The first ones are student run Instagram page, so you can see what the students have been up to. Our second one is the graduate admissions page, where we profile Forest Grove and Portland a lot and give application tips on there. So as I said earlier, please contact me if you have specific questions about prereqs or want individual advice on your application, and I am happy to help. So I've just talked a lot. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to put into the chat two things. I'm going to put the curriculum in there if you want to check out our electives and the full curriculum. And I'm also going to put in the page for our student ambassadors, because as you can probably tell, I can talk about Pacific all day long, but I am not a current student, and I'm also not Canadian. I'm from Connecticut originally. So if you have questions about Pacific and you want answers from a student perspective, about the application process, or, why they chose Pacific, or what it's like, moving from Canada to the US for optometry school, please be in touch with any of our current students. We have a bunch of Canadian students who are student ambassadors in the first, second, and third year. And they all have little bios on the website, so you can see where they're from and where they went to school and what their interests are. And their email addresses are there. So please reach out to them. They like to hear from applicants. I know it can feel a little bit weird just cold emailing someone, but that is the reason they are there, and they really enjoy it. They volunteer to do this. So if you have any questions from a student perspective, they are incredibly valuable. But anything from me before we go? All right. Well,
You answered everyone's questions.
I talk a lot, talk fast.
No, it's really good. You touched base on everything. And I know for me, I found it really helpful. I don't know if you guys still do the one-on-one sessions just to go over individual applications. So if anyone wants to do that, I would recommend that.
Yeah, so I have, and actually I'll put a link to it in the chat as well, so you don't have to email me first. If anyone has questions about if you want to go over prerequisites, or, your academic profile, or any other questions, book an appointment with me. You can book a Zoom or a phone appointment. My calendar is always up to date, so just choose whichever works for you, and then we can meet virtually and then go over anything that you would like to. So I'm happy to help. As I said, the goal is to make your application process less stressful. So any way I can help, I can do that. So links are there. Thank you for having me. I hope you have I hope you have a wonderful weekend and enjoy your Friday. And I will hopefully see some of you soon. I know I'll see at least one of you. And have a really nice weekend, and be in touch if you have questions.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.